Alright, so we're just going to keep on working on this question. It's question number 17, and we're trying to find the percent of the students up here, these students, that scored within 1 standard deviation of the mean. Now that's a really key line that you see there. It says within 1 standard deviation of the mean, and a lot of people take that as between the mean and positive 1 standard deviation, but within 1 actually means like that the distance from the mean is 1. So that's actually the positive direction and the negative direction. So what we need to do now is use our value of the mean and use our standard deviation to figure out what the scores are within 1 standard deviation of the mean. So in the negative direction and in the positive direction. Now if this is the mean, if this is the average, and I want to figure out what my score is over here, all I need to do is take 79.7 and I'm going to subtract what the standard deviation was. Subtract 8.7. So apparently over here at the -1 standard deviation, that's a score of a 71. Okay. Now I also need to figure out what it is in the positive direction as well. So 79.7 plus 8.7 instead. And that gives me an 88.4. So when the question says, what percentage of these students scored within 1 standard deviation of the mean, now we have those scores between or within 1 standard deviation. Now what we need to go is go through and highlight and figure out which of those scores actually are within 1. So this 70 does not make the cut because it's actually below 71. It's right here, so that's out. 60 is below 71 as well. 75 is in between 71 and 88.4, so that's good. 68 is too low. 85 falls within that range. 86 is good. 78 is fine. 82 makes it, or I'm sorry, 72, 82. 88, yep, that's good because that goes to 88.4. 73 makes the cut, 84 makes the cut, 79 is within the range, 86 is within the range, so is 82. 90 is too big, 92 is too big, 93 is too big, and 73 is in there. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We have a total of 20 students. And then it's looking for the percent of the kids who are within that range. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 students out of a total of 20 fall within the range between or within 1 standard deviation from the mean. So I'm going to go over here. 14 divided by 20, that is 0.7. So what's the percent of students? That would be 70% of the students fall within 1 standard deviation of the mean. That is definitely a hard question. That's why I'm glad that we could do that together, because you will absolutely see something like that on the test. Okay? Now part B, do the results of the examination approximate a normal distribution? And this is where I needed you, if you remember me teaching you about this stuff on day 1, and I said that a number that was really important for you to memorize was we added up all of those percentages that were between -1 and +1 standard deviations from the mean, all of the stuff in here, and all of those numbers, if you remember, added up to be about 68.2. All those numbers added up to be 68.2. So approximately, in a normal curve, 68.2% of the scores fall within 1 standard deviation of the mean. So with this question, it's saying, do the results of the exam approximate a normal distribution? And this is what you need to write for your answer. Okay. Yes, the scores approximate a normal distribution because 70% of the students fell within 1 standard deviation, whereas in a normal distribution, 68.2% fall within 1 standard deviation. So pretty much because 68.2 is really, really close to 70, that's why these scores approximate a normal distribution, because it's about the same percentage of kids that fell within 1 standard deviation, okay? So yes, the scores approximate a normal distribution because 70% of the students fell within 1 standard deviation, whereas in a normal distribution, 68.2% fall within 1 standard deviation. And you can say like 70% is really close to 68.2% or something like that. So that's why that 68.2% was really important for you to memorize. If you forgot it though on the test, you could always just take the time to add up all those scores. 15 plus 19.1 plus 19.1 plus 15. Figure out what that is if you forget on the test, okay? Alright, we're going to move on to number 18, which is very similar to number 17. Number 18. From 1984 to 1995, the winning scores for a golf tournament were, and then it lists out all the scores. Using the standard deviation for the sample, so S of x, that's going to be in your calculator. So not sigma, they want us to use S of x, the sample standard deviation. Find the percent of these winning scores that fell within 1 standard deviation of the mean. Okay, so this sounds exactly like the question that we just did. Alright, so let me list out all those scores. 276. So those are all of our scores, and they're talking yet again about normal curves and standard deviation, all this stuff. So what you need to do is draw out a normal curve for yourself. Alright, and then we're going to go through and we're going to label things. Every time that you draw out a normal curve, you need to figure out what your mean is and what your standard deviation is. Except for, actually, in this case, we don't want the standard deviation, we want the sample standard deviation. That's in your calculator as well. So we're trying to figure out the exact same thing that we did before. What percentage of the scores that are above fell within 1 standard deviation? And whenever we say within 1, that means between -1 and +1 standard deviations. Okay? So what I need to figure out is what's my mean, what's my sample standard deviation, so I can figure out which of those scores fall within this range. So I'm going to edit that list again, go out and clear out what I have in there right now, type all these values in. And you need to make sure that you're being careful when you type these numbers in, because if you type them in wrong, then you are going to get your answer wrong, obviously. Okay. So it says that I have 11. Did I miss one? 7. Let's just go back and check, because right now it says I have 11 scores and I'm supposed to have 12. 276, 279, 279, 277, 278. Oh, I missed a 278. Alright. See, that's why it's always good to check. So it doesn't matter what order we list them in, so I'm just going to list it right down at the bottom. I missed a 278. Okay. Now I have 12 scores. Awesome. So now I'm going to do stat, calculate, my one variable statistics, just like always, and I'm going to tell my calculator that my data is in list 1 and hit enter. And hopefully, John, you're doing this out with me every single time, because I need you to get used to doing this with your calculator by yourself and not just watching me do it. So the average for these scores of whatever, I think this was a golf tournament, The average is a 278, and I'd say 0.58. And then it wanted us to use the sample standard deviation, not the sigma. It wanted us to use the one right above it with the S of x. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because it said sample standard deviation. Okay, so the sample standard deviation is 3.146, so I'm just going to round it and say 3.15. So now I need to use this information to figure out what my scores are for positive 1 standard deviation away from the mean and negative 1 standard deviation from the mean. So I'm going to take my average, 278.58, and add a 3.15, add my sample standard deviation, to get this score right here is apparently a 281.73, and then 278.58 minus 3.15, that gives me a 275.43. So my goal now is to take a look at these numbers. That's the negative one and this is the positive one, and figure out which of these scores up here fall between those two numbers, fall between those two, that range. So 276, that falls within the range. 279 is still good. Another 279. Yep. 277 is good. 278 is good. And now remember that I forgot to add that other 278. So there's another 278. And that one falls within that range as well. 280 is still less than 281, so we're good. 282, however, is too big. It's past 281, so it's out here somewhere. 285 is too big as well. 272 falls too low. It's actually below 275, so that doesn't work. 279 and 278 are both within the range. Okay? So we figured out which scores fall within 1 standard deviation of the mean, but the question wanted to know, find the percent of these scores that fall within the mean, and always when we do percent, it's always part over whole. So if I add those up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there's 9 total scores that fall within that range out of a total of 12. So if I put that in my calculator, 9 divided by 12 should give me 75. Yep, 0.75. So that is 75% of the scores fell within 1 standard deviation of the mean. And that was all the questions that we had to ask or answer for number 18. So you can flip that over. We're going to go on to number 19, but I'm going to start another video for you so that you don't get cut off.